How's it going, everybody? I'm your host, the Carolina Collector. Before I begin, I want to say thank you so much to each and every single one of you. I am filming a double feature because I really want to take a break. Tomorrow's Friday, so if you're seeing this, I would have recorded this Thursday night. It'll be time-stamped and everything like that, but still, I'm really pushing hard to put some content out there for you guys. I'm not going to get into certain things in this video. I already discussed it in my previous videos. But anyway, thank you for your time and patience. If you like what you see and you enjoy the content, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button, comment in the comment section below, and hit the bell to receive notifications. And also check out my eBay store, the Carolina Collector 001. The link is in the description box of every video and short that I upload here on YouTube. I promise all of you, if you're eBay customers of mine, I will be loading up my eBay store. I'm really trying to motivate myself again. Some of you have been leaving really kind words and stuff like that in the comments section. So I am trying my best to keep things going. But as I said, this is an example of me trying to motivate myself. If you're watching this, I'm going to do the double feature. So I just got done filming my USS Enterprise video, and now I'm going to segue right into this since I got, the tabletop all set up here as far as the camera is concerned. And I want to go back into card collecting for a little bit. So this is the extent of my slabs at this point in time. I know it's not a lot. It's small. Well, actually, it's much smaller than what I had in the past because either some cards didn't interest me, or unfortunately, because I am an LLC, sometimes you have to sacrifice for the sake of the business and for personal reasons. Again, I don't want to get into it, but many of you already know the subject matter I've been discussing here on the channel. If you want to hear about it, go back to previous videos. But, sometimes in life you have to make tough choices, and I've had to sell off some of my slabs as a result. You already know my dealings with the post office. It's been awful with them. I had 2 returns come back, which I have sitting over at my TV stand right there. I've already ripped the envelopes open and resent the cards. They're absurd and ridiculous. One of them, actually, this is now a second time that one of them came back, and I got in contact with the customer, and they still can't understand why the post office is not delivering their card. But anyway, so I've been seeing this coming up in my news feed when it comes to SGC cutting down on their services or cutting down on their personnel. And PSA are now absorbing many of their graders, which essentially means that there's a very good chance SGC may not exist. And the term that was used, it's going to be a boutique brand. I don't even know what the hell that means. I still haven't seen anybody really define what that is. So these are the slabs that I have left. And the reason I want to talk about this, I am an SGC snob. I mean, over time I have bought some slabs for myself. These are the current slabs and the only PSA slabs I've got left for my personal collection. You've seen these on camera. These are the ones I decided to keep. These are some pretty heavy hitters. And I mean, the Paul Skeens at this point is probably like anywhere between $250 to $300. That's his rainbow foil from Update. But, I'm happy to have these. These were chase cards I wanted. Don't forget, I've only been back in the hobby pretty much from the time I started my LLC, so we're approximately 14 months into me having my little sports card shindig here at home. But I've mostly submitted to SGC. First off, I live in North Carolina. They're based in Florida. The turnaround time is very quick. Well, was quick up until the point where I submitted this guy. You all know what that is. You see me pull this out of a box of Flagship right here on the channel. It came back at 8.5, which is a fair grade. I even called it when I pulled it out of that box, that top to bottom, left to right, it's off-center and it's favoring this corner just a little bit. No, I think it's favoring this side just a little bit, excuse me. Don't forget, I don't script my videos. So it's kind of favoring this side of the card. You can really see that on the back. But doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm happy with the card. It's a good enough grade. Still probably around $1,000 range or more. When you see these pop up on eBay, they're going for insane prices. So But this is what's left of my personal collection. These are the ones I am keeping, even though I tried several times to list this. That's my Shohei Ohtani 2023 MVP. Topps Chrome Lids Mitchell and Ness, red out of 5 Shohei card. I decided not to, because I don't want to break the little miniature set that I got. You know, and you can see I got red out of 5s. Recently I sold the LE Team Border, and this is a fair grade because it's got a little nick right there. But, you know, it's a sticker auto. It sucks, but it's still a beautiful, beautiful color match to the slab. So I decided to keep this one. I sold off the Team Border on eBay. There's my Ethan Salas, which is still going for a nice chunk of change. There's my Aaron Judge, which, if you remember, I only paid like $200 for this, which is insane to think about it, because the slab was cracked, and I resubmitted it to SGC, and it came back at 10, which is to be expected. Still a heavy-hitting refractor, but the reason I'm talking about this, you got somebody like Jeff Wilson saying that buy the card, not, you know, buy the grade, or whatever no, I don't want to swear. I'm trying not to swear. What's the famous saying in the hobby? Buy the card, not the grade. And people like Jeff Wilson are saying that's a stupid idea. Well, I think he's, you know, an uneducated oaf. Allegedly, I have to say that, because here's an example of why I'm talking about this. You've seen these already on camera. This is just a sample of my father's baseball cards. After he passed, my brother was kind enough to send these to me. These are some that I was able to rescue out of that binder that you saw on camera. The goal of grading and slabbing, even putting them in acid-resistant, UV-resistant sleeves, are for a couple reasons. You know, to stop them from bending and creasing and damaging the cards any further. Grading, in my opinion, was meant for preservation. It was meant to preserve these things. That was the primary goal. But unfortunately, you know, over time, the rarer the card that got sleeved in any particular sleeve, like, let's just say right now, the Griffey Jr. Star Rookie is currently going for around $2,500 in a PSA 10. If I were to crack this and I made a video about this and I put this into a Beckett sleeve, and a lot of you said, don't do that, it's not worth the risk. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, I haven't done that, but I was just curious to see, you know, I wanted to get a feel for the room. And I decided not to, but it's a PSA 10. And I got it for much, much less than that. I mean, originally I paid $1,700 for this at the time, and it's appreciated in value. But currently it's going for $2,500 that I've seen. And it can only go up in value. It's a corner cut card. Like the Don Mattingly rookie. I wanted this since I was a kid. This I got for dirt cheap, you know. At the time, I won this in auction, Bobby Witt. There's the Ohtani batting Bowman Chrome, which is the more popular version of this card. I think there's several variants of that with him pitching, etc. The Barry Bonds rookie. This is not the Tiffany. Man, I've seen this card now. I only paid like $250, something like that, for this card. I'm seeing this thing listed for like $1,400. I don't know if that's just people trying to scam collectors, because that price was pulled out of thin air. I looked on PSA's website, and the latest auction, I think, was for like $300 or $400 for this card. Something like that. You guys can fact check me on that. You know, the Paul Skeens that I won via auction, and this one that I begrudgingly bought, even though I had it in an SGC 9.5, I was like, the PSA 10 was cheap enough for me to buy, and it's still sitting at around $250-ish. If you're able to get it for that, I recommend you do. I mean, why not? But I'm content with my little modest collection of cards, you know. And now I've got my dad's cards here that I can imagine my dad as a little boy playing with these and handling these, especially that Hank Aaron. Man, that's a beaut. But the whole goal was to preserve these. And now with SGC basically being chopped down to almost nothing, I'm afraid to submit these cards to them, because now if they're taking the better graders away from SGC, and adding them to the ranks of PSA, where does that leave SGC? Now, in my opinion, I think SGC, from my research and homework, and then again, you have to understand, up until I got some junk wax singles, and now getting some of my dad's baseball cards, I've never handled truly vintage cards until he passed. And a big shout out to my younger brother for sending these to me. I still have to rescue a lot of my dad's cards, but SGC are well known to be much more graceful with their grading, because there are certain aspects, especially with chrome cards where you have print lines, etc., where they kind of are a little bit more lenient than PSA is. And here's the real shitty part about PSA is that they know, and I got plenty of videos, I have a whole playlist on my channel about the obsession of PSA 10s and SGC 10s and stuff, is that, let's just say somebody submits a Ken Griffey Jr. Star Rookie, right? Comes back a PSA 9. And the person that submitted it takes a look and says, oh, well, it's perfectly centered, and I think, feel, and believe because of my feelings, it should have been a 10. I think PSA, and I'm not accusing them of anything, I'm not alleging anything, but to me it seems like the whole thing is a sham, because you'll have collectors, well, not true collectors, we're talking about eBay flippers and people that want to profit off of this stuff, like people like Jeff Wilson, allegedly. They only care about profiteering off the hobby, right? They'll crack the slab, send it out again, come back a 9, crack it, send it out again. And they'll keep doing that vicious process, go through that vicious cycle until somebody puts a 10 on there. And what happens? PSA keeps making more money and more money and more money. That's why I don't like to submit to PSA, because they're way too inconsistent with their grades. And now that they've tightened their grades, I bet you that this Ken Griffey Jr. would never be a PSA 10. How do I know that? Because when I took my centering tool, it's ever so slightly off-center this way. If the hawk-eyed would really see that. It's ever so slightly off-centered, but it's within the boundaries of their old standards that they used to use. I believe it's, what, 60-40? Now it's, what, 55-45? Something like that, which is really, really close. But SGC have always been a lot more, they always had a little bit more wiggle room, especially when it comes to what they can refer to as natural aspects of the production of the cards. Some cards will have print lines in them, and they will let it go. Maybe there might be some dimples because of the chromium, in the cards, like this Aaron Judge here. And they would let it go, and, you would get a decent grade for it, I mean, if you really, really wanted to nitpick, you can see where the cut of the card is right here on the edge, and that's from manufacturing. But manufacturing, or the natural process, sometimes SGC lets that slide. And that's why I like SGC. They're a little bit more gracious with their grades. The one thing that stopped this from being a perfect 10 as far as this Ellie auto is concerned is that right there. Otherwise, this would have been a perfect 10. I already knew going into this would never be a perfect 10 because of that. But it's a 9.5. I bet you if this was a PSA, this would be an 8. Because that's what they do. Even with this, I guarantee if I were to submit this to PSA, this would probably come back like a 7. Knowing them. It's not, to me, it's just PSA. They're too dodgy with their grades. And I'm not that type of customer or a collector that is picky over the grade. The grade is the grade. It is what it is. And when I pulled this Barry Bonds, I called it on camera that, yeah, it's a little off center. I already knew going into it wasn't going to be a perfect 10. And I think the grade is fair. So that's why I chose SGC. I've only had one issue with SGC, and that, of course, was way back when I first started the channel with the 2023 Topps Chrome Lids Mitchell and Ness Corbin Carroll orange out of 25. That was all messed up, and I cracked the slab and sent it back to Topps, and then they, the whole debacle if you watch the channel with that. But eventually I was able to get my hands on a raw Corbin Carroll, red out of 5, and then submitted it to SGC, and it came back a 10, so no loss there. But it just seems to me that I still think PSA sees SGC as their direct competitor. And in particular, when it comes to vintage, and I've watched plenty of videos here on YouTube where people like myself, and again, full disclosure, I've never handled vintage until my dad passed and my brother sent me these. You know, SGC seems to be a lot more forgiving with vintage, and they seem to be a better grader than PSA. You know, I already know just by the condition alone and the way some of these cards are off-center, like you can actually see the factory line here on this particular card. It's a World Series card right there. That, you know, this might come back a 2, might come back a 3. Some of these may come back 2s and 3s. Some of them may come back authentic. Who knows? But, you know, at least SGC, they're a lot more forgiving with a lot of things. And it makes me mistrust PSA. But then, of course, you got the greed that of course, is in the hobby. I need my perfect 10 PSA. And some people out there will crack their slabs 3, 4, 5 times, and PSA don't give a damn. They'll keep hammering it with 9s and 9s and 8s and 9s until, you know, the obsessive compulsive idiot that's out there finally lands their selfish perfect 10. But by that time, how much do you have to pay for shipping and resubmitting and all this stuff? Like, it's messed up. Do it once. You know, in some cases, in rare cases, even I would argue. But here, I got my Shohei Ohtani, which again, I was like, ugh. I almost sold this thing. I'm like, you know what? I better keep this just in case. It's off-centered, top to bottom. That's clear. You can see it. The 9.5 is justified. I bet you if I sent this off to PSA, it would be a 7. You know, there's certain issues even with the surface of the chromium on the card here that I'm aware of, but they still graded it a 9.5 because it's a natural condition of the manufacturing of the card. And that's where I love SGC. Now, of course, you know, you have your conspiracy theories of pop control and all that kind of stuff. But now I've reached a point where, like, I got my dad's, or at least some of my dad's vintage here. Should I submit it to SGC anyway? Knowing that their top graders won't be there, and now some young amateur is going to be there and may undergrade these. All the grades I've ever got from SGC have been absolutely fair, and you guys have seen that on camera. 9s, 9.5s, and 10s are all justified. You'll never hear me complain about it. The only one card I had an issue with, like I said, was that Corbin Carroll. And look what that turned out to be. That's the only thing that I saw wrong in any card I've ever submitted to SGC. But after that, they've been absolutely fantastic. But the slab is too big. I don't like the black around it. It doesn't look professional. It's too thick. I rather the thick slab. I'm not saying PSA slabs are flimsy or anything, but there's just something about that it's thick. We might have women and children watching this video, but yeah, I think you fellas understand what I mean. She's thick, you know what I mean? And I just like the way the numbers pop on this thing. The big 9.5, at least you can see it. I kind of wish SGC did implement, you know, barcodes and stuff like that and QR codes, what have you, but I mean, I still like SGC. That's just me. It's a personal preference. And if I do come across another card that I like from PSA, I mean, these, again, are all singles that I chose to buy. I submitted not one of those. I bought these on eBay. You know, that's the route I'll go. But when it comes to my personal collection, again, this is a very teeny-weeny collection now at this point compared to what I had. I probably had double this before I sold off a lot of my slabs, which you've all seen on camera if you're eBay customers of mine. It leaves me now thinking, like, should I even bother submitting these to SGC and just keep them as is? Because from my point of view, at the end of the day, it's not about the value, not a dollar value. For me, it's preservation, especially when it comes to something that my dad grew up with and handled. I remember when Upper Deck first came out. I was in junior high school. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Don Mattingly fan. I got a whole bunch of Don Mattingly jerseys and Yankees jerseys. You know, and the rest of these cards, I just wanted. Especially for the prices I got them at now. My God, what some of these cards are worth and what they're going for on eBay. Jeez. But anyway, that's pretty much it. What do all of you think about this? My conclusion, and this is allegedly, PSA need to be careful. Because if they can do this to SGC, and they can't completely close out SGC, you know why? Because we have antitrust laws, and they can actually become a monopoly, and that's illegal according to our laws. So they have to keep SGC as its own separate entity. You'll never see SGC completely dead, but they cannot kill it off because they will, in fact, become a monopoly. They're monopolizing the grading card space after Beckett and CGC now. They got to be careful. They're going to be treading some thin water these days. If let's just say if they decide to absorb Beckett, for example, or absorb CGC, they got to be careful. They can end up becoming a monopoly, and that's illegal. So I don't expect SGC to go anywhere. It's just unfortunate now that I'm sure the waiting times are getting longer. That Barry Bonds auto that I showed you took me 30 days almost to get back in my hands, where the 5 to 15 day turnaround time. Do you really want to pay extra for more turnaround time? I don't. Or less turnaround time, excuse me. I don't. But let's see what the future holds. When I finally make my decision, obviously, again, all of you know a lot of the things that I'm going through off camera. It's really, really devastating to me. You know, that there's a lot of things that need to be taken care of. Eventually, I do want to submit my dad's cards. And I would prefer to submit these to SGC. I just cannot trust PSA with their inconsistencies. And I'm not going to be a sucker to resubmit slabs again and again and again. Do it once. Do it right. That's where I think SGC really is the better company. But again, some responsibility falls on all of you and falls on me. Get yourselves a grading tool like I have. Screen your cards. Don't just go by eyes. Screen your cards and then submit them. In the case of vintage, I'm quite sure that PSA is going to be brutal on my dad's cards. And I don't want that. And I've seen a lot of videos with guys having vintage cards and SGC slabs, and they just look so much nicer. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. I'm your host, the Carolina Collector. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications. Also, check out my eBay store. I promise all of you I will be listing some more cards. I already have started. I'm trying to push myself to do so. The link is in the description box of every video and shot I upload here on YouTube. Take care, everybody. I'm finally going to bed.